Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about this idea of you will eat the bugs, you'll own nothing and be happy. Bugs and vegetables will replace all meat and dairy and eggs and fish and so on. Or all protein, if you like, and all current primary sources of protein. Let's have a look at that, because the World Economic Forum and the globalist goons they've trained and prepped and radicalized quite a lot of young people, and they always need to use the young people to get to the young people. So say people under the age of 25. And some of them are quite erudite, by the way, sound quite convincing on the face of it. And they've let them loose around the world, speaking engagements and through the think tanks and in the universities and in the high schools, and doing the circuit in terms of talk shows and current affairs shows and sociology type news delivery, which a lot of it is, of course, these days. Now, I'll try and sort of summarize the arguments that they put forward. Now, they start from the beginning. Well, the world's going to end any day now unless we do this. So we have to do it because the world is going to end. And anyone disagrees with it, anyone who disagrees or even questions this is a fucking Nazi, is a fucking fascist Nazi, if not Hitler. So that's the beginning. Now, straight away when you hear that, you go, hey, hold on a minute. If it's as bad as you say, and if the situation is as grim and difficult as you say, then you don't need to make things up. You don't have to use dramatic language like that, because the reality is more than sufficient. So straight away, I'm skeptical once that I'm prepared to engage in a discussion there, and anyone who doesn't 100% agree with them is Hitler. I just don't accept that. So that's the starting point. And already, again, most people should be skeptical. But let's go on to the arguments that they put forward. And some of them they don't sound sort of insane, but you have to really drill down to the details, because they talk more in headlines with emotional supplementary sort of utterances than they do details. But let's have a look at that. Now, the argument they put forward is, once they get away from the planet's going to end, so they say we have to do this, then they say, well, it makes good sense anyway, because if they claim that the amount of land, agricultural land that is used for growing feed for animals, such as cows and sheep and goats and so on, chickens, whatever, the amount of feed, the land that's used to grow that feed, that then feeds the animals, which are then move into the food supply chain, that if we, instead of using that land to grow feed for animals, which could be grazing, pasture grazing land as well, by the way, instead of that, they argue, why don't we just cut that out, get rid of the animals altogether, and put all that land into growing vegetables? And then with that, the amount of vegetables that can be produced in per acre, if you like, of land, and thus in the amount of people that can be fed in gross tonnage, more food can be produced by growing vegetables than can be by growing meat on the hoof that has to have land to be used anyway as pasture. So that's their argument there. So they're saying, if we look at an acre of, I'm simplifying it a bit here, but if we look at an acre of land, we can raise two cows on that acre of land, over a 5-year period. But if we use that land for growing vegetables, for example, we can we can grow many more vegetables and feed many more people from that same amount of land as we could by raising beef now or sheep. Now you can look at nutritional value of each, one versus the other and that sort of stuff. But that seems on the face of it quite persuasive. Well, hold on a minute. If we can if we can grow, for example, 100 tons of carrots on that land over 5 years, and those carrots will feed 10,000 people. And whereas, the amount of beef that you can, or lamb, or whatever you can grow on that, that's only going to feed half as many people. Then we can feed twice as many people by growing just vegetables on that land. So, gee, why wouldn't we do it? Now, the next argument was rather emotive that they go to, these activists, is they say that, well, the world can't grow enough food as it is, and millions of people are starving. Did you know how many little children are starving? Little children starving in their mother's arms. Little girls dressed in pink, starving in their mother's arms. Do you not want those kids to have food? Is that what you're saying? You damn fucking fascist. So that's the other, apart from the world ending, they go down that path, that you're taking food out of children's mouths. And of course, that's absurdly, ridiculously simplistic. They switch back again to climate change. They say, well, the reason those kids are starving in Africa isn't because of civil wars. It's not because they mismanage their farmland so grotesquely that they can't grow any. It's not because any of those reasons. It's not because that all the white farmers that were chased off the land or any, no, it's not that. It's because of climate change and because of fucking Nazis. And so they go back down that path, or that direction again, which yet again, in my view, just undermines any attempt at or any legitimacy that they may have had. So coming back to the nutritional value now, say, well, we can grow more vegetables on that acre of land than you can raise meat, as in meat on the hoof, sheep and cattle. Therefore, it is more sensible to grow vegetables in a sheer economic sense. It's better use of the land, and so on and so forth. So now, when you start to drill down on this and pick up the nuances in it, not all land is suitable for growing vegetables. Some land is pasture land because that's all it's good for. You couldn't grow anything on it other than grass, and so the grass happened to feed the cows on land that is pretty much unusable for anything else anyway. So now, in the case of the to get the production of vegetables up, you need to be very, very fertilizer intensive on that. And on the other side, they're saying, well, fertilizers are killing the planet. We should stop using them. So they're advocating, on one hand, get rid of the cattle and use that land for growing vegetables. But in order to bring more land under cultivation to grow enough vegetables, you then have to use more fertilizers, which they're saying fertilizers should not be used. Now, if you take fertilizers out of the equation, and so how many vegetables, as in volume, and how much land under production can you have for growing vegetables, then the amount of vegetables will be less than is currently grown, less than is currently being produced. So clearly their economics and their sense of reality and proportion just doesn't stack up. Now they deliver these things quite quickly, and we can grow more vegetables from here, which means more little children in Africa can be fed, and that's a good thing. Don't you think so, you damn fucking Nazis? So they move it along quite quickly, but I've noticed and I watched a few interviews here. As soon as the interviewer tries to get them to stop on a particular point, then they switch back to well, the planet's going to end, and these foods are delicious. They're delicious, and they move it around, and so they're quite well trained. Whoever trained these people did quite a good job. They sound convincing. They sound forthright, erudite, and sensible and reasonable. They sound. The reality, of course, is that they're talking, in my view, at least, absolute nonsense. So I'm still looking for the economics to stack up. Now we look at the bugs, eating the bugs, and well, the bugs have as much or greater protein, per pound or kilogram or whatever than say meat does. So therefore bugs are better because the protein is good. Well, I don't know how much work's actually involved in growing that many bugs and then distributing them, because you can dry them, and I don't know what extent the protein value is diminished when you dry them. In the same way, say, when you intensely refrigerate and freeze meat, how the protein content diminishes. These sorts of things. I don't know how much fertilizers or additives are needed to increase the production of the bugs. So there's a whole lot of questions in there, but I can't see it. I mean, from where I've gone, I can't see the mathematics adding up in terms of the sheer economics and the production. Now, given that the only people who are really pushing this are rabid activists and climate activists, and you're all going to eat the bugs and own nothing and be happy activists, it's very hard to find any sort of impartial voice. Even if you go to, say, the beef farming industry, for example, even there they're advocating that beef beef farming should be continued, that sort of thing. So they're still influenced by the economics surrounding their industry, and I get that, by the way. But their industry is a real industry employing real people, and they're not pie in the sky ideologues. Whereas the other side is arguing get rid of all the beef or the protein industry, get rid of all that and go down the path of bugs and vegetables. They are ideological fanatics, so I'm less inclined to listen to what they say. But I did take one for the team and sat through a number of these talks on the internet, and you can see them online, YouTube and so on. And just tried to nail down the facts. And I found it very hard to listen to their arguments, because if you take away, we've got to do it because of climate change, we've got to do it because of starving kids in Africa, you take away those two imperatives, and then there's no reason at all why you do it. Why would you do it? And then if you look at the economics, they play a double game with economics, as I mentioned, where they talk about vegetable production per acre is greater than the meat production, on an acre for acre basis. But they make that claim and then later on say that all fertilizers have to be taken away. And they also don't recognize that different land is suitable for different things. So just pasture grazing land is not particularly good or productive for vegetable growing. So their claim that you can grow more vegetables per acre is only correct if you've got the most fertile land that they're growing those vegetables on. And then the different sort of land, such as broadacre crops, cereal grains as an example, is the different sort of land than if you were growing apples or bananas or something like that. So there's different land and the different climatic conditions for different fruits and vegetables with different rates of productivity. Some land you wouldn't bother growing fruit and vegetables on it because it just isn't suitable. You'd get hardly any fruit and vegetables out of it, but it is suitable for grazing. Grazing, for example, beef cattle or sheep or something like that. So there are those sorts of issues, and I haven't been able to find an accurate study at all. Also, the refusal of the activists to admit that, say, Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, was one of the biggest producers per acre of grain. In fact, I think it was the biggest producer of grains in Africa. But after the absolutely horrific mismanagement of the economy and of the farming sector by the black government when they took over, meant that Zimbabwe now is a instead of being a bread basket, it's a basket case where they grow fuck all in the way of grains. And again, it was once the grain central of Africa. So they're not prepared to concede those things. They say black kids are starving and it's because of climate change, but they won't concede the mismanagement of the farming sector by the black governments who've taken over between the 1960s and 1970s all over Africa. Look at South Africa as an example, a huge supplier of fruits, vegetables and grains. Now they produce fuck all and they have to import it. So until the ideologues accept the realities of the world, and then I think their claims and arguments and positions should be dismissed, no matter how much they call you a Nazi or anything like that. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.